Do day 72 of the 100 Days of Narration Challenge. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to day 72. Day 72. And we are on biography or autobiography week, although in this particular case, this particular book is not an autobiography because it's not written by the original author. And thank God for that, because today's book is The Shrine of Jeffrey Dahmer, written by Brian Masters, who is also an author of something else called Killing for Company. So, yes, this is I hope you haven't eaten before listening to this, because it would not be great, because I don't know what passage I'm going to read from this. I'm going to flip through and do the usual thing, but it might make you marginally ill. I don't know why I'm reading this. I'm just glad I'm not going to eat later. Actually, I am going to eat later. Damn it. But I'm probably going to lose my appetite in a bit. So for those of you who do not know who Jeffrey Dahmer is, you're about to receive an education, a horrific education. Let me read the blurb here. When arrested by Milwaukee police in July 1991, Jeffrey Dahmer had a severed head in the refrigerator, 2 more in the freezer, 2 skulls, and a skeleton in a filing cabinet. Other human remains were hidden in plastic boxes and drums. A serial killer, an inhuman monster beyond our understanding. But why? What led Dahmer to kill coldly again and again? In Killing for Company, Brian Masters has already shown his ability to get inside the mind of a mass killer. Now he once again demonstrates his skills at worming his way into the darkest parts of the human psyche. So, yeah, there's going to be stuff in here that some people, most people, every person should find quite disturbing. And if you find that it's a bit of a turn on, then I don't know what to tell you apart from, never visit Australia, because, we've already got enough crazies over here. I live in a killer capital of the world, so we don't need another one of you people down here doing crazy things with corpses. Anyway, let's go through and try to find something. Oh, I can feel my skin crawling already. Okay. Right. Okay, and we'll start here. This actually looks a little bit tame, actually, this particular section. I did do a test read yesterday, and I somehow came upon the necrophilia chapter. A chapter devoted entirely to discussing necrophilia and how that was part of Jeffrey Dahmer's little kink. Anyway, God starts in the middle of a sentence. Motherfucker. Never mind. Appears. And Jeff loathed the host's strategy of trying to make his guests feel bad about themselves. He just wants them to feel as guilty and as lousy as possible. The guy is such a prick. He would then try to sleep a little and go out for lunch to the Grand Avenue Mall more often than not. There are a number of self-service restaurants in this 2-block-long covered shopping arcade, French, Chinese, American, to suit every taste. He was particularly fond of McDonald's and a chicken and chips establishment on the first floor called Apricot Annie's. He would turn up there in the early afternoon and always go to his favorite stool at the bar. If the stool was occupied, he would walk around until it became vacant, rather than take another one. He liked the coffee beat. He liked the coffee best at the French cafe. He would go home by bus or occasionally by cab. One taxi driver recalled that Dahmer had invited him in for a beer, but he had declined because he could not drink on the job. At last, Jeff Dahmer found an innocent interest he could indulge. He bought a 30-gallon aquarium from the fish factory at West Oklahoma Avenue. Sorry, I thought that was a West Oklahoma, then comma something, but it's actually a Thai word. At West Oklahoma Avenue. Some tropical fish and some books on the subject. He used the black table destined to be his altar as a pedestal for the fish tank, and spent time and care on setting it up all properly. It was nice, with African cichlids, cichlids, with African cichlids and tiger barbs in it, and live plants. It was a beautifully kept fish tank, very clean. I used to like to just sit there and watch them swim around, basically. I used to enjoy the planning of the setup, the filtration, read about how to keep the nitrate and ammonia down to safe levels, and just the whole spectrum of fish keeping interested me. He would wander around the fish store, fascinated by the shapes and colors of rare specimens. And in recollection, it was only when talking about fish or press misrepresentations of that case, or press misrepresentation of his case, that his voice became animated. I once saw some puffer fish in that store, I once saw some puffer fish in the store, he relates. It's a round fish, and the only ones I ever saw with both eyes in front, like a person's eyes, and they would come right up into and they would come right up in front of the glass, and their eyes would be crystal blue like a person's. Real cute. He developed a great enthusiasm for triggerfish as well. After his arrest, he would look back with nostalgia on his last attempt to do something ordinary, normal, harmless. It's a fun hobby, he said. I really enjoyed that fish tank. It's something I really miss. Dahmer did not say so, but there is an inescapable serenity in an aquarium which contrasts dramatically with a tumult still raging in his own weird world. That tumult erupted once more at the beginning of September, in front of the bookstore on North 27th Street, where he met Ernest Miller from Chicago. It is well to point out here, perhaps, that by no means all the people Dahmer approached and accepted his enticement of money for sex. No, let's try the sentence again. It is as well to point out here, perhaps, that by no means all the people Dahmer approached accepted his enticement of money and sex. God damn it. It is well to point out here, perhaps, that by no means all the people Dahmer approached accepted his enticement of money for sex. Police amassed over a dozen instances of individuals who were propositioned by him and declined, a few of them more than once. And there's a little star next to that, a little footnote here. Vincent McHenry, Robert J. Pettis in the Grand Avenue Mall, both in October, Perry Woolsey in November, Alan Matthews in January at the 2219 Club, Leonardo Rodriguez, I can't say that name without putting an accent on, Leonardo Rodriguez in the Grand Avenue Mall in February, Douglas Jackson in April, McHenry again in April, Reginald Ball in May, Matthews again in May. Oh. Okay. They each have reason to thank Providence for their strength of character, but Ernest Miller said yes. Dahmer was about to enter the bookstore at about 3 a.m., after the bars had closed, when he spotted Miller standing outside, black, 23 years old, and well-built, wearing a yellow sweatshirt with striped sleeves and white tennis shoes. He offered $50, and he walked 2 blocks to the apartment. Dahmer lay on top of him, hearing the sounds and ticks and beats pulsating beneath him. He listened, entranced, placed his ear and lips to the stomach, and went down to find the phallus. "That'll cost you extra," said Miller. Dahmer got up and went to the kitchen to make his potion, gave it to Miller, who fell asleep about half an hour later. Okay, things are going to get a little bit strange here. Dahmer was immensely proud of his acquisition. For the rest of the night, he fingered him, fondled him, gazed upon him. He walked around the room, drinking beer, occasionally glancing at him, then went into the kitchen and returned at leisure to find him still lying there, a perfect body, all his. He touched the sleeping form, withdrew for another beer, came back, and touched it again. He masturbated himself in such a way as to have his hand touching Miller's body at the same time, as if it were participating in the act. There was just one thing wrong. He had only been able to give him 2 sleeping pills as he had run out, and the body might very well stir soon and want to wake up. It was too late to strangle him without a fight. How could he devise a way to keep him there? His solution was effective but catastrophic, and for him, quite novel. He drank some alcohol to smother fear and residual inhibition. Then, with the knife he used for dissection, let's try that again. He drank some more alcohol to smother fear and residual inhibition. Then, with the knife he used for dissection, he neatly severed Miller's jugular vein. Yikes. He neatly severed Miller's jugular vein. Sorry, I'm just figuring out what's happening in this word. He avers that he knew this would be painless and quick, that Miller's would not suffer, and with the medical knowledge acquired in army days, he would certainly know exactly where to inflict a mortal wound. It took him maybe about a minute before he died. Blood gushed out onto the bed and walls and carpet. Worse was to follow. Having hauled the body onto his black table, the aquarium was not yet in place at this point. He took about 20 photographs of it in various positions, and once more caressed it adoringly. Next, he put it in the bathtub and began the process of dismemberment. Once he had severed the head, he kissed it and talked to it, apologizing for having had to do this. But I couldn't think of any other way. He took more pictures of the decapitated body at various stages of dissection, and of the head itself, which he placed in the fridge. In the coming days, he would take it out from time to time and masturbate before it. For the final photograph, he pushed the eyelids up to obtain a more lifelike image. The fact that the eyes were closed must mean one hopes that Miller did not regain consciousness before he died. Meanwhile, Dahmer had completed dismemberment in the bathtub. The method is best described in his own words. I separated the joints, the arm joints, leg joints, and had to do 2 boilings. I think I used 4 boxes of soil eggs for each one. Put in the upper portion of the body and boiled that for about 2 hours, and then the lower portion, for another 2 hours. The soil eggs removes all the flesh, turns into a jelly-like substance, and it just rinses off. Then I laid the clean bones in a light bleach solution, left them there for a day, and spread them out on either newspaper or cloth, and let them dry for about a week in the bedroom. He stored parts of the legs, arms, heart, kidney, and liver in various bags in the freezer for later use. Dahmer had formed the intention of using the complete skeleton to adorn one end of his shrine, and went so far as to try reassembling it once he had disposed of all the remaining flesh with glue. This proved to be too laborious a task, so he placed the skeleton in the bottom drawer of his cabinet. So he placed the skeleton in the bottom drawer of this cabinet in the bedroom until another day. Yeah, it's a long sentence. This proved to be too laborious a task. So he placed the skeleton in the bottom drawer of his cabinet in the bedroom until another day. Once he had removed flesh from the head, he spray painted it and coated it with enamel. I had three of them by that time, and I wanted to keep. So when they were dried, I glued the teeth in to make sure they were fastened. These 3 skulls were on display and looked fake enough to remain on display even when subsequent victims were present. Their final resting place was in the top drawer of the cabinet. Their final resting place was in the top drawer of the cabinet. Meanwhile, they were surprised at the Joe Hall dance studio in Chicago when Ernest Miller did not show up for his Meanwhile, they were surprised at the Joe Hall dance studio in Chicago when Ernest Miller did not show up for his first It's session. Why am I having trouble saying the word session? His first session on Tuesday. He had been granted free admission. For the first time, we now come upon a disturbing innovation, when Dahmer ate some of the flesh he had saved. We shall leave until later a discussion of the significance of this behavior, which increased as the months went by. Since it is inadequate to ascribe it to sheer curiosity, since it is inadequate to ascribe it to sheer oh boy, jeez. Yeah, the subject material is disturbing, but that shouldn't be causing me to do all these stutters and stops. Let's try that again. For the first time, we now come upon a disturbing innovation, when Dahmer ate some of the flesh he had saved. We shall leave until later a discussion of the significance of this behavior, which increased as the months went by, since it is inadequate to ascribe it to sheer curiosity, and it does bear an interpretation which fits a coherent scheme of his pathology. Nor does it help to specify exactly which portions were eaten, although such details were to be given in open court. The reader will perhaps allow me from this point onwards to be generally less precise concerning the fate which befell the remains of each individual. Most of what has been said so far was revealed in court, even to the baking of Eddie Smith's skull, but some of the more lurid details were not then known, and the families of those who died have borne more than enough without having to learn of their post-mortem indignities. I shall therefore describe Dahmer's actions without, for the most part, indicating which victim was the object of them. David Thomas, 22 years old, died in the early hours of 24th of September 1990. Curtis Strata, nearly 18, died on 17th February 1991. He was waiting at a bus stop near Marquette University when Dahmer spotted him, jumped off the bus, and approached him. Errol Lindsay was 19 years old when he was killed on 7th April. Errol Lindsay was 19 years old when he died on 7th April, and Tony Hughes, who was killed on 24th May, was 31. All were black, and two were heterosexual, but cooperative. Tony Hughes was especially to be pitied, as he was deaf and dumb, and therefore deprived of the ability to even protest to his assailant. Hughes, who was homosexual, met Dahmer at the 219 Club and asked three of his friends, two girls and a man, to give them a ride back to where Dahmer lived. He and Dahmer sat in the back seat, writing notes to each other. Tony wanted to bring the whole company in for drinks at the apartment, but Dahmer indicated that he was inviting Tony by himself. Tony then relayed this information to his friends in sign language, and they understood the situation well enough. He did not seem at all afraid of Dahmer. Tony Hughes was never seen again, but his presence was strongly felt in the courtroom less than a year later, when his mute friends turned up to demonstrate solidarity and grief. Most impressive of all was his mother, an elegant, trim, quiet, and dignified lady in mourning. She was there every day, unsmiling and unconquerable, yielding neither to bitterness nor rage, in silent celebration of the closeness she and Tony had enjoyed. I never spoke to Mrs. Hughes, but I felt the strength of her commitment. These unfortunate men came across Jeff Dahmer's path at the point where he was beyond repair. He told Dr. Judith Becker, let's try reading this again. These unfortunate men came across Jeff Dahmer's path at the point where he was beyond repair. He told Dr. Judith Becker that his moral compass had been shot, and that he only lived for the weekend. And that he lived only for the weekends. He had begun watching the movie Exorcist II, which cost him $90 on a regular basis. As soon as he came home from work, both before going to the bars and with his victims on returning from the bars. Oh, because it was in the theaters, so he went to watch it in the cinemas. Let's try reading that sentence again because it didn't come out right. He had begun watching the movie Exorcist II, which cost him $90 on a regular basis. As soon as he came home from work, both before going to the bars and with his victims on returning from the bars. He was, he said, thoroughly corrupt and evil by this time. Perhaps the tiniest chink of light still danced upon him. Okay. Let's try that again. Perhaps the tiniest chink of light still danced upon his soul from time to time. There was an occasion when he took home a man and had light sexual contact with him, kissing and masturbating, and the man left the next day in the normal way. Why? He says that when he sobered up, he realized that he did not like him as much as he had thought. Let's try reading that entire sentence through without tripping. He says that when he had sobered up. I hate that word. Sobered up. He says that when he had sobered up, he realized that he did not like him as much. Oh boy. Wow. I'm having real trouble with the sentence. He says that when he had sobered up, he realized that he did not like him as much as he had thought. Just gonna keep doing the sentence until I get it right. He says that when he had sobered up, he realized he did not like him as much as he had thought. That's almost good. He says that when he had sobered up, he realized he did not like him as much as he had thought. And I just said realized instead of realized. He says that when he had sobered up, he realized he did not like him as much as he had thought. On the other hand, one might be permitted to hope that there was more to it than that. There is no evidence either way. As his disorder deepened, so did Dahmer's peculiar experimentation Oh no, another weird sentence. As his disorder deepened, so did Dahmer's peculiar experimentation escalate. He bought a pair of handcuffs to heighten the fantasy of power and control, and Curtis Straughter actually fell asleep with them on. He also bought a black leather strap as a tool for strangulation, thinking it would be quicker than the manual method. One of the four was murdered this way with a bag over his head. Another was killed because he was going to wake up soon and would be angry. With all of them, however, Dahmer fell into a cuddle immediately after death, holding them close, placing their arms around him to simulate the intimacy of embrace. With one of them, he decided he wanted to keep the entire skin. This he effected with a small, sharp paring knife, making first an incision at the back of the neck, slicing up to the crown, and then pulling the skin on either, and then the sentence ends there. Yeah, that's a good place to stop. Or maybe the good place to stop was several pages before. Yeah, that was The Shrine of Jeffrey Dahmer. Well, it started off innocently enough about buying fish for an aquarium, and then became about killing people. Yes, and consuming their flesh. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things. Okay, yeah, so hope you weren't eating while I was reading this, because now you are not eating anymore, I would assume. Now you are probably retching the entire contents of your stomach. So, that was The Shrine of Jeffrey Dahmer by Brian Masters. And that was day 72 of the 100 Days of Narration Challenge, this week being biography or autobiography week. I hope you will all come back for tomorrow. This is the most horrible book I'm reading this week, so the rest of this week is just it's going to be celebrities. It's going to be celebrities, okay? And not serial killer celebrities, just, normal movie and television star celebrities that we don't have to worry about, them killing people unless, they have that as a hobby, which they hopefully don't. Okay, so hope you come back tomorrow for day 73. But for now, this is the end of day 72. Thanks for joining me. Hey, you seem like a cool, wonderful, and or awesome individual with impeccable taste in voice actors. So why not follow me on Facebook or Twitter? You can keep up with the latest projects I'm in, or that my friends are in, or that you could be in, because I occasionally post links to open editions to various projects that require voice acting out there, or that nobody's in, but they're interesting projects nonetheless that you may also find interesting. Also, lots of random thoughts about whatever's on my mind at that particular moment. Usually it's about food or video games, or foodie video games. Anyway, you can follow me on Facebook at OmadonVA or Twitter at Omadon. Hope to see you there.